Hello, my name is Mike Ignatoski, the creator of the BlueLynx Hockey Spreadsheet, the spreadsheet that uses Excel programming to help you conveniently manage your tabletop hockey league project, including the standings, the schedule, but most of all, the player and team stats for your entire league. BlueLynx was created to help you get more enjoyment out of your tabletop hockey projects by giving you more time to play the games and look over the stats instead of painstakingly calculating them and entering them into a spreadsheet. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to create a historical league season league in the BlueLynx spreadsheet. A historical league season, or HLS league, is one that's basically just uses a historical season but uses all the teams and the entire league schedule for that season, regular season. So, where compared to the historical team season where you just choose one team within a year, in the historical league season you choose the entire year and all of the teams. So let's see how that works. So here's our welcome screen when you open it for the first time, and we're going to create a league. I'm going to click this button here, and similar to the steps for the historical team season, it lands us here on the league help page. And I'm going to go through this video probably a little quicker through some of the steps because a lot of it's the same as in the historical team season video. So even if you're looking to have a historical league season, you might want to watch the historical team season video for some other details related to just setting up your league. So and both of these start the same way, which is they require this hockeyreference.com BlueLynx data file that's referenced here in this step 2, which, like I said, this video assumes you already have the spreadsheet and the BlueLynx hockeyreference.com data file that's needed to create these historical leagues. And then if we look at step 3, this is go to the league tab. And from here, it's quite similar to what we did before. So we start here in the mode, click in the box. Here are our 3 types of leagues, but now we're going to choose historical league season here. And we get this pop-up that tells us to enter the season year in the yellow box. Now, one thing I will say is, and it states it in this little pop-up thing, which is in BlueLynx terminology, it calls years by a single year, not, whereas NHL, a lot of things will call this in this example, it would say 83, 84. The BlueLynx refers to that as 1984. You can think of it as the year the Stanley Cup was played. That's the year that BlueLynx refers to it as. So nowhere in BlueLynx will it refer to the kind of year it started and year it ended, even though that's quite common in the NHL world, just like the NBA. But just for simplicity and a lot easier to work with in the programming wise, it just uses a single year, and that's the year that the season ended. Not that it started, but when it ended. So, as I guess I'm going to play my Detroit Red Wings card here, and I'm going to say 1997 as the year. Now, just like before, I already have the hockeyreference.com spreadsheet open. I think if I can show that here in the background, which is the same, same one I had before, but here's the hockeyreference.com data file. It's called BL_HockeyRefData, that file, and this is just showing the different pieces of information in it, but you really don't need to mess with it. I just wanted to let you know that I had it open, and that's why this works. If I didn't have it open, I'd get an error. So let me minimize that. Okay, so now I put my year in. It told me to click this purple button. That's what I'm going to do. So as soon as I put in 97, you can see here it filled out this list. So 26 teams in 1997. So here are all the teams. Here are all the IDs. Here are all their divisions. And over here you can see, I don't, it'll wait till I put my own name of my league in here and fill this in. But as far as the conferences and the divisions, these are already filled out. And those are right here too. That these conferences are referred to as sub-leagues, as you can see here. By this little help pop-up tool tip, and similarly this. So that's all the part of the knowledge contained in that hockeyreference.com spreadsheet. Is when I pick a year, I know, or it knows, how many sub-leagues or how many conferences there were, what the names of them are, and what divisions were in those conferences, and what teams were in those divisions. So that's the knowledge that's contained in that data file. Anyway, so after all that, I'm going to click this big button, and it's just telling me it could wait. It could take a couple minutes, so while it does its thing, we can just sit and reflect on the Red Wings 1997 Stanley Cup. I gotta say, I can't remember if that was a win over the Flyers or the Carolina, New Jersey. I have to go look. But anyway, so this is basically just going to bring in all the rosters and the schedule for the entire league that year, and that's what it's churning through right now. You know, depending on your computer, that may depend how long it takes, but it doesn't take, you know, it shouldn't take an hour or anything like that. This thing should be done here in a matter of a few more seconds. But you know, the older the league, you know, they don't have as many teams, that they load a lot quicker. The newer seasons, where they have more teams, and there's just a lot more games, a lot more players on those in those seasons. So you can see here now it's filling in the schedule. And wonderful, we get the success message. So this, as before, basically fills in the main ones are the MPL, which stands for the Master Player List, the rosters, which have every player that played for each team, and the schedule. It's just taking a minute to look at those to make sure that they contain reasonable data, and then it tells us to go back to this sheet, the league sheet, and click this black button up here to validate the league settings, which is kind of acts as a guide to tell you what to do next. If you're never sure what to do, click that button and it'll tell you if something's missing, what you have to do next. So I'm going to click OK, and then let's go take a look at what it loaded. Okay, so the first thing let's look at is the schedule. So down here in these tabs or these sheets, you know, throughout the video or wherever, I'll refer to those words kind of either worksheet, tab, or just sheet, but they all mean the same thing. Are these things down here at the bottom? Each one is like a different sheet. So let's look at the schedule. This is for 1997. You see here there are 1,066 games, and it you know, puts in the date that they actually played. It generates this game ID, which, you know, the first number is kind of the season game number, and then it tells the home team and then the visiting team. And then the schedule always has the visitor and the home. And then over here it shows the actual score of the game. And you may or may not find that helpful for other things, and I'll talk about that later too. But anyway, so yeah, here's all 1,066 games just waiting to be played. And that's the schedule. If we look at the rosters, you know, I don't know how many players are on these rosters, but a little less than 1,000. So, and just like the other video with the historical team season, it's the same information. You know, it'll have a team, this player ID, which comes from hockeyreference.com. So every player has a um, unique ID that you very rarely see in the BlueLynx spreadsheet, but once in a while you will see it, but typically you don't have to worry about it because in addition to this being unique, uh, BlueLynx requires this player name to be unique. So there are a few cases where there was a couple Bob Kellys in the same year, so they have to have a middle initial or something to differentiate who's who. This primary position is also provided by hockeyreference.com. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but I'm going to say it's good enough. You can change this if you want to, but you don't have to. And this column here just indicates guys that played for multiple teams in the year, and it lists them in the order that they played for those teams. But on these rosters, they'll be listed with both teams. And if you're not familiar with Excel, but when you see these little squares on this columns on this whole table, these are set up to act as filters. So as an example, if I look up Adam Oates here, when he got traded from the Bruins to the Caps, if I look up in this player name, I could unselect this and find Adam Oates. Here he is. If I check this box, you'll see here are the two Adam Oates rows, one for Boston and one for Washington. In these historical leagues, you're allowed to have the same player on two different teams because he played for two different teams. Just as kind of a heads up, first to clear these, you can just hit this clear. But that's different than if you were to make a custom league, which I'll have a different video about custom leagues. In a custom league, you have to provide all the rosters, and when you provide the rosters for custom leagues, you can't have any duplicate players. Nobody can be on two teams. In the course of the season, you could change a player's team and basically trade him if you want to, but at no time on the rosters can the player be on two teams. So that's kind of a special rule for custom leagues. But at any rate, in short, that's the rosters. This master player list really is like rosters, except here it tells you how many unique players were in this league for this year. It was 846. And here, like Adam Oates, will only be on, I guess, Boston. He'll only be on the first team that they played for. If we look down in Washington, we won't find Adam Oates because this is just kind of, like I said, the master player list only has each player once. But, okay. So, but it looks like it loaded our stuff, so let's go back to the league sheet and carry on with the next step in creating our historical league season. Okay, before we continue with the validation, I want to mention something I forgot to tell about the rosters. So if you go to the rosters, one thing I want to mention is that at this point in the league creation process, you have the chance to modify these rosters. And I say modify, really I mean delete some guys that you don't need or want in your league. Let's just take, for instance, these Bruins. And I'm going to use this little filter here to just show the Bruins. But anyway, you can see here they've got 44 players that played for the Bruins in 1997. And I feel pretty confident that probably no hockey game made cards or things for all 44 of these players. So you may have a game that only has 25 or 24 or 27. I don't know how many they make for these things these days. But anyway, but if you only have, let's say, 25 players for the Bruins, you may just want to just have those 25 guys here. And not that the other ones are going to ruin your life, because as we'll see later, like I said, the way this BlueLynx works is before you start playing your games, you'll need to create a default starting lineup for each team. And when you make that lineup, you'd only include players that you have in your game. So that, in a way, gets around it most of the time. But you still may have, so let's pretend you had 25 cards or 25 players on your 97 Bruins. You make a starting lineup that has 20 guys in it, and now you have 5 guys that's kind of your in reserve. That for each game, though, you might put some of those guys in there. Maybe somebody gets hurt. So when you have to use one of those guys or one of your reserves or whatever you call those players, you want to know which guys you have in your game, and to be able to differentiate from those players or these other 15 or whatever it is that are that historically played for the Bruins, but you don't have in your game. So you don't really want, maybe not want those guys to kind of confuse you of who you want to put in. So you have 2 options, or really 3. Three's do nothing and just deal with it as you go, which is okay. 2 is you could delete the guys you don't have, so that just takes them out. So if you want to do that, like I said, that's using this feature. So we'd unlock the rosters. So I'm going to unlock this. See, this turns to unlock. It says it's unlocked, and it tells us how to delete by double clicking the row number, basically. So if I take this Dave Emma guy and double click here, it prompts me and says, asks me, do you want to delete David Emma? You can't undo this. But I'm going to say, yeah, I don't have this guy. So it deletes him. And similarly, I could do it for other players. I'm not that familiar with all these guys, but if I say Sandy Moger or whatever, I could delete multiple players and that'd be fine. Another option, though, to do it, that's maybe one thing about that deleting is, as I said, you can't undo it without starting the whole process over. You could always restart go back to your league and just reset it and start again, and then you get your player back. The other option uses this primary position. So let's just pretend that this this Andre Roy, if that, or Roy, whatever pronounces his name. I'm going to say I don't have this guy. But instead of deleting him, I'm going to just click in here and change his position from left wing to, I can either just write X, or maybe I want to put the X in front of the left wing, so I maybe know what it was, but I know with this X, I kind of know that means it's a player I don't have. And I say that because assuming this guy won't be in your starting lineup because you don't have his card or you don't have him in your game. But the only time it might come into play, as I said, is when you're tweaking your starting lineup before the game and you need to use some players that weren't in your first 20. You don't want to be confused about who to choose. So this way, when it gives you that list, it'll show their position, and you could see this X here, and you'll know not to just select this guy as to bring into your starting lineup for a game. So I hope that's kind of clear. But so your 3 options for dealing with guys you don't have in your game are 1, nothing, and just don't put them in your starting lineups, and you have to kind of know what cards or players you do have and which ones you don't. Or you could do some work ahead of time at this stage and delete players here that you don't have, or you could not delete them but just modify their position by either replacing it with an X or putting an X or something else in front of it, just something that denotes oh, this is a player I don't have, so I'm not going to ever bring him into a game. So that's just what I wanted to mention about that. So now let's get back to moving on with the league configuration. Okay, now we're back here. It told us to click this validate league settings. We'll do that. It complains about the league ID because we didn't give it one. And you can also see right next to it we don't have a league name. So let's name our league 1997 replay. And I'll give this ID just 1997 ID. Let's click the validate again to see where that gets us. So now it's doing more stuff, so that's a good sign. Okay, so here you can see it's created our standings. Here's the name of our league, 1997 replay. It's telling us our standings look good. If we want to change them, we basically got to start over. Actually, okay. And now this is telling us that our league setup looks good. And maybe we want to lock it, or we probably should lock it, or should consider locking it. But locking it is kind of a point of no return for some things. So once you get this far, you can't change how many teams you have, the team names, their IDs, what division they're in. You know, you can't take players out of the league for the most part. I mean, I'm just going to say you can't. You know, if a guy never had any stats, then it wouldn't matter if you took him out. But in general, once you start a league, you should leave all your players in. There are some things you can change, like we'll get to it in another student video, which is changing these team colors, which would go here. We'll see how to do that. We'll also, you could change a player's position if you wanted to. That's allowed. But the other things we had said you can't change once you lock your league. So I'm going to say, yeah, lock my league. Then it says, that's good. Now it's going to try to update the score sheet to set up to function and basically historic league season mode. Okay? Now it puts this over on the score sheet. And it's setting up the score sheet for league play. So now the score sheet mode is League HLS for historical league season. When you first get your spreadsheet, it's like league question mark or question mark league. So now it knows what it's working with. Okay. Does a few more backflips in the background or the foreground. Now it tells us our score sheet's ready. And we can click the game ID to load a game. But then it tells us, well, maybe not quite. You need to set your default or your primary starting lineups for each team in the league. And this lineup will be loaded when you load a game into the score sheet, but you have the opportunity to change that lineup before you start playing the game. And it tells you to set your lineups. You go to the league lineup sheet. So here's the league lineup sheet, and if I click on any of these teams, you can see each of these lineups. This is where it holds them is blank. So, but at this point, I'm not going to worry about that because we do have our league, I'll say, officially configured here, and I'm going to cover how to work with the lineups and do the other things you need to do before you start playing your games in a different video. And to recap, I guess I'll say there are 3 more things you need to do. Well, let's talk about all the steps. One was you got the spreadsheet, you got the hockey reference data spreadsheet. Those are the first step. Second was you created your league. You created this here was a historic league season. We chose 1997, or I did. And so that league is now successfully created. Now, there are, I'll say, 3 more things we need to do before we start playing games. One is set up these team starting lineups, the default starting lineups for each team. Although you could say you only need to, you could do them as you go. Like before you play a game, whatever team you pick, you need to get those lineups set, and then you could play that game, and then before you play the next game, you could also configure the next game. So you don't have to do them all at once, but depends how you want to do it. The other 2 things you'd want to do, I think, are is right here. There's set up these team colors, which I'll talk about that in another video. And the third thing is figure out what stats you want to keep track of in your league for your players, because the green, the green BlueLynx spreadsheet gives you some options of what stats that you want to track, and it has ways to set that up. So I'll cover that in a different video. And those are the other, I'll say, 3 things that need to happen. And once you have those set, you can start playing your game. One other thing related to, especially this league season that I'll mention, kind of comparing historic league season and team season, of why you might want to choose the league season even if you're really focused on one team. Here's an example. And I'm going to show the schedule here. So in the schedule here, so let's say I did want to just play the Red Wings games of '97, but if I want to keep track of the standings for all the teams, then I need to have the whole historical league season there as opposed to just the team season. Because I try not to be too confusing here, but if I just picked a historic team season of the Red Wings in '97, my schedule would only have 80 games. And in the standings, when I would look at it, it would just show the Red Wings standings. It would show all the teams' records, but the other teams are only going to show their record against the Red Wings because they're not going to play anybody else, which might be fine for your project. But if in your project you want to play your Red Wings games or your one team's games and keep track of their stats, but the other games you want to see all the other games in the standings, BlueLynx gives you an option to do that. So one is when you complete a game, it'll fill in the score here, but if you want to, you can fill in what I call kind of this scored only, or it's kind of like quick play. You could just fill in a score for a game, and I put this over here as kind of a cheat sheet. If you want to use the historical outcome, you could put that in, but you could also maybe have your own quick play setup, or you roll 6 dice and it tells you who won this game between the Avalanche and the Blues, and you could just write that score in here, and you write it in. I think if I hover here, yeah, you can see here it shows if you put an asterisk in front of the score, like it shows here, this example of, it says star 3-2, that indicates to the BlueLynx spreadsheet that this is kind of a scored only game, and it will be reflected in the standings, but there won't be any stats for this game. So that's maybe a reason that you might want to choose the historic league season, even though you only want to focus on one team, because you can still keep track of the standings for all teams if you want to either use historic results or quick play results for all those other games. So I wanted to mention that also. So that completes this historic league season video. As I said, there'll be some other videos of how to take care of the other things you need to do before you start playing games. But thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. And like Red Green says, keep your stick on the ice.